to another episode here of Questing Onward. I'm Ashton.
And I'm Whitney.
This is part 2 of, I don't know how many parts, but we're going to get through this and as long as it takes, because it's great. I love this. This is like my favorite thing. So, part 2 of our little mini series about like why this is so important to us, how we met, communication, and like how we fell into it and why we're so passionate about it. Announcements are the same as last week. It's the same as now because we're recording this at the same time. But yeah, these will all be on YouTube. Feel free to please hop on in. Whitney, we were talking about you. Go ahead and just throw us right back into here.
Yes. So quick recap. We met in Italy. We did not date. Got home the same day. Had fun. Couple weeks into dating, family members were starting to raise concern.
Yeah.
Friends were raising concerns because I had never dated anyone. I had never kissed anyone.
Well, and it got serious. It got serious quickly, right? Like I think that was like the big thing. Is it was like I remember when I told my dad, like, you know, I'd been in relationships before, and I remember my dad, who's like a very, very, very like understanding person, I would say. Even he was like, "Really? Like,
are you
sure about this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sure." But yeah, it definitely raised some concerns. So yeah, let's go through there.
So with those concerns, people were coming to me about those concerns, and it wasn't something that they would talk about in front of both of us, obviously.
Well, I think one thing that's important to know as well is like at this point in time, like again, it was so new, but like you weren't even around here. So like understandably, they didn't even, like a lot of like family and friends didn't even know me. Like they had never even met me, right? Like it was like, you're dating this boy, you move to Utah, you date this boy, it's getting serious. Never met the guy, never seen the guy. So like obviously, understandably, some concerns, right?
Absolutely. So I remember they were coming to me with these concerns, and I had never been in a relationship, as I stated previously. And I thought I had been taught how to communicate pretty well. But after being in a relationship for a little bit, I realized I was kind of out of my element on how to communicate with someone that I was interested in,
right,
that I loved. And so people were coming to me with concerns. And in my mind, I was like, I can't go to Ashton about this because I need to protect him. And I don't want him to be scared off and think that I'm not, that I'm questioning things and that my friends and family are questioning things. And so I really wanted to protect Ashton from all of that. So I wasn't going to Ashton with any of this. This was something that I was hiding from him and trying to protect him from.
Yeah.
And that quickly became something that you could sense, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And I think I was curious, why, when you say like the word protected, like what was it that you were trying to protect me from?
So these people didn't know you. And so when you don't know someone, I think that you kind of go into the worst case scenarios and, well, what if he's abusive? What if he doesn't treat her right? What if he's not that great of a guy? You just don't know. And
Sure.
It's someone that is so important to you, as their daughter, as their friend, that they want to protect me. And so they're bringing up concerns.
Sure.
And I'm like, well, you don't know Ashton. And some of the things that were said could have been hurtful, which in my mind was like, I don't want to tell him this because he might think that they're judging him, that, that they think he's a bad guy, that maybe I've been talking to them about things which I hadn't been, but maybe I had been talking to them about things that I didn't like about him.
Sure. Fair.
And so I just was so in my head and just really wanted to protect our little bubble that we had created. And I felt like if I was going to bring in these other comments, these other opinions, it was almost going to pop that bubble and you were going to fly the coop.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like, it was interesting because I do remember like this distinct moment where I recognized this, right? And then like someone for me, a little bit of context of like why this was like, I was worried was I came from a split family. And growing up, I had my mom and dad who, I wouldn't say it was like the ugliest of divorces, but it wasn't clean. Like there was a lot of like animosity and frustration. And like watching from my point of view as a child, a very negative, like not a good communication example at all, right? Like just a lot of frustration and anger. And I just remember as a kid, just like I was always like hearing two different versions of every single story. And there was so much emotion and so much like frustration. And so when I had started dating Whitney and then I saw this, like, I felt like I wasn't getting the whole story. Like to me, it was like such a concern, right? And so I'm curious from your standpoint, when I did because I know exactly, there was a moment where we had a conversation, a really kind of a harder conversation about this. When we talked about this, was it something that was hard for you, concerning, when I was like, hey, communication's really freaking important to me? Was it something that what were your thoughts, if you remember?
I definitely remember I wasn't scared to communicate, but I think I was scared to be vulnerable.
Sure.
I think I was scared, again, that I was going to put my whole trust in you, and then you were going to decide that, okay, this is way too much. I don't want to deal with all of this, not drama, but,
Sure.
All of this baggage that is coming with you. And so I think I was just more scared more than anything, and scared that you were going to leave, because it had, at that point, I had made the commitment. I was like, I am marrying this man. I love this man. He is going to be the father of my children. I was planning out everything in my head. And then for you to come and say, I can tell you're holding something back. If this is going to be a problem, then I think we need to part ways. We need to be able to communicate, or else I can't make this work.
Yeah.
I was like,
and it kind of was that way, to be honest. It was very much like an ultimatum type of a thing, because to me, I had watched so many different examples growing up in that environment, what a negative relationship looked like. And I just was terrified. It's my biggest fear. I have always said, the one thing that I wanted in my life more than anything is to be a father. And I knew that if I didn't have a supporting wife and someone I could talk to, I'd never be the ultimate, the father that ultimately I wanted to be. And so to me, I was so scared. I was super scared of going into any form of relationship where I felt like there was roadblocks and stuff. So yeah, it was a challenge for me. And I definitely came in probably a little bit guns blazing, also with an ultimatum, because I was just I'm not even going to risk it.
We were passionate about it.
Oh, so
passionate already about communication.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'd never really seen the power of communication.
Sure.
And I think it was something that, along with that, again, I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't know the importance of it. And I think there was still parts of me too that wanted to protect myself. And so it was just still that mentality of, I need to protect myself a little bit, versus I need to be completely open, completely exposed, and completely we are one mindset.
Yeah. And I think that's something that we've come to find is so, I think, hard in a lot of relationships, is that idea of being vulnerable, right? That idea of ultimately letting someone into your life that does, I think you said it well, they truthfully do have your heart. If done the right way, they have your heart in their hands. It's that's scary.
They have complete power over you.
Yeah.
To make or break you, and to crush you in the most devastating way, or to completely build you up, make you the strongest person, reach your full potential. Yeah. It's one or the other.
Yeah. I think that openness is something that I think a lot of people struggle with. And I get it. I totally get it. It's hard. It's and it's still hard for us at times to let down those walls to let someone in. Right. Because again, you're still you. And one of my favorite quotes that I always share is we are the main characters in our own story, no matter how hard we want to be completely open to someone else. My story is still about me ultimately, and your story is still about you. And so sometimes it's so hard to be willing to let someone in the main stage at times, but ultimately I think it's so important. So yeah, I guess moving forward, so obviously we went through these difficulties. What other difficulties, or I guess experiences, do you feel kind of shaped us into who we are in those young earlier years?
So we did end up getting married, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I think there's something before then that I think is really important, that I think really shaped us. And so at a certain moment in time, we and Whitney were there was a really big struggle that we were dealing with in terms of are we going, and it was ultimately the decision came down to are we getting married or are we breaking up? Right. So we don't have to get into too much detail here, but I think that that's vital to who we are. Right. So what, from your perspective, I guess, how did we get through those moments, and why were they so important?
So I think they were so important. First off, I think that was the point that we, again, like Ashton said, it was the ultimatum. We're getting married or we're breaking up. It is one or the other. And I think that was honestly the big turning point of, we're all in or we're all out. And our personalities are both kind of like that. We don't really do things
halfway.
Yeah. And so we decided we were going to get married and we were going to make it work.
Yeah.
Whatever we needed to sacrifice, whatever we needed to prioritize, whatever we needed to work on, we were going to do it. And I think having that mentality where both of us were bought in, both of us were completely committed, that is something that we've taken throughout the rest of our marriage.
Yeah.
It's followed through the rest of our marriage.
True.
And whether that's parenting, communication, work, whatever that is, whatever that looks like, it all goes back to that one moment, I would say.
Yeah. And so we have a hard cutoff here, so I'm going to cut this quick. But yeah, we'll talk about continuous next time. I mean, this is going to be at least one more, maybe two more. So appreciate you guys.